Hey everybody, welcome back. So today I have yet another project. This time what I need to be able to do is, you saw me drive those T-posts that were way in the back of the property where we're going to be growing a vegetable garden and some flowers also. And the flowers are only going to be for the purposes of attracting pollinators, so that way we get a good harvest, because plants need to have pollination. So best way to do that is just to kind of attract some bees and stuff like that will come over and do that work for you. So also, one of the things that we need to have for a vegetable garden is water. There's no water in the back of the property at all. So what I wound up doing was yesterday, and actually throughout the week, I went ahead and laid out some irrigation line, marked the irrigation line, went ahead and called up the dig services that are out here, just to have them check to make sure there wasn't anything that I'd be running into when I was digging, because I have to trench all the way to the back of the property in order for me to run that irrigation line. Wanted to make sure I didn't run into anything that maybe was buried that I didn't know anything about. I was free and clear, so I was good to go. So what I wound up doing throughout the week here is I took the tractor and I went and added on swapped out the tiller that I had on the back and put the 3-point hitch that has just the trailer receiver on it, because I have another implement that'll just slide into that, which has a subsurface soiler. And what I did with that was just kind of like, I would say I dug a trench, but that's not really too accurate, because the subsurface soiler doesn't really dig a trench, but what it does is it does hook into the ground, and it will sort of kind of do a trench. It just breaks up all that soil. It doesn't, and all the dirt kind of collapses back in, so it doesn't really create a trench, but it does bust up that soil, and that is like 95% of all the work that needs to be done in order for you to dig a trench is actually, shoving a shovel or whatever down into the ground in order to be able to actually, get that soil out of there. And I knew there's no way, because it's a good like 100 and something feet to the back of the property, and to have to dig a trench that's over 100 feet long in the 100-degree, Texas heat, that's just not going to happen. I mean, as it stands, doing the work that I've been doing around here and driving those T-posts and all that stuff, I just got blisters all over my hands. I've been wearing gloves too, so that'll tell you like how rough it can be. Assuming that you've never done really large projects. If you've done large projects, then you know exactly what the heck I'm talking about. You're just going to wind up with blisters and everything else. But it would have been, I would not have been able to dug that trench by hand. So took the subsurface soiler, ripped up the dirt along the route that I had planned for putting the irrigation line in, and then came back with the furrower that I have on another implement to go on the 3-point hitch on the back. And that's actually the garden bedder. Like the garden bedder has a furrower and has 2 disc harrows on it that'll form up the beds that I'll be creating in order for me to be able to plant the vegetables. But the furrower also came in handy to be able to move some of that soil out of that trench. Wasn't perfect, and what I had to wound up doing was still grab my trenching shovel and go along and shovel all that loose dirt out of the trench. And that was the project that I took on yesterday. And that's one of the reasons why I have so many blisters, because it just took, even though all that was all broken up, it's still a lot of work to go and have to lift all that soil out and move it out of the way. And again, it was like super hot yesterday, but I got it all knocked out and was able to go ahead and drive the T-posts in, because the T-posts were significant for this particular project. And this particular project is, now that I've got the irrigation line, in the trench, it's just laying in there right now. Yesterday I went ahead and got it in there and was able to cement, use the PVC cement to be able to cement it all together. So I've got the irrigation line running all the way from the back of the property, and I have a spigot that's down there. It comes all the way over here. I don't know if you can see that. I think it might be out of the frame, but I do have a spigot that I have all the way up here. So what I have next to me is all the things that I'll be using to be able to actually have irrigation in the back. So first things first is I need to have this hose. This hose is a little bit special, and I don't mean special as in like kind of special. I mean like it's got 2 female ends on it, because what it needs to do is it needs to go from the garden hose outlet and go into the other spigot to feed the water into that other spigot. So that's what that one is for. Next up on the list is I've got a manifold. This manifold will take the single line and turn it into 4 because we have our outdoor shower, and then we have a hose that'll be out here for, rinsing off some of the pool equipment, things like that. Then I'll have another line, and that line will go from the outlet on here to the inlet on the irrigation line that'll go to the back. And then the fourth one, I have another plan later on down the road to where, with our outdoor shower, it only runs off, the line that comes right out of the garden hose here. So what I'm planning on doing is, like, later on down the road is like have another storage tank that I've got over here and elevate it, or maybe put a pump or something like that in there. So that way I can go ahead and have hot water coming out of our outdoor shower there. So that's gonna help with that. Then next up, I've got 5 of these Flexzilla hoses. They're supposed to be really good. And what those are gonna be for is I have a whole package of these guys. Just your regular old garden sprinkler head here, the kind of does all the funny noises where, that thing. So that's what this is gonna be. I got a whole box full of these things here. And then that gets mounted onto this. So just like that, right? So then we got, usually these things you would stab them into the ground. But what I plan on doing with it instead is I'll have some of those hose clamps. I'm just gonna hose clamp it to the T-posts that I have out there. And I've got 5 of these things. I've got 5 of these hoses. Actually, I got six of these. And I've got 5 hoses, so I'll be able to hook up 5 of them, which I think will be good enough. I might actually have to turn some of them off. I don't really know. I have no idea how much pressure I'm gonna have back there. So that's gonna be interesting to see exactly how things work out when I do get all these ran in the back there. So what I can do with these is that they have this fitting on the back here that you can take off. So you got your inlet that goes on there like that. And then for the next one, you got your outlet, and it just daisy chains everything together. That's why I've got, 5 of these things. So that way you just go from one to the next, and the next one will be up over there a little bit a ways. That's the solution for being able to irrigate the back there. So that being said, I think it's time to go ahead and start getting all this stuff put together. Because it's kind of late in the day right now. It's like about 3:30 or so, and I got some work to do. Well, as you can see, there was at least one spot. Well, actually, this is the only spot. You can see where there's some mud that was created because there's a little bit of a leak right here on this junction. So I'm gonna have to fix that because I don't want to have any leaks at all. I know it seems like it's a very small amount, but over the course of an entire year, that'll add up. So I want to make sure that I don't wind up with like a permanent puddle here. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and cut here, and then splice in. And hopefully this go around will solve this problem because we cannot have any leaks. So I have the majority of them all in place right now. So I just thought the very last one, show you how simple it is to go ahead and hook this system up. So you just start off with, as I mentioned, the cap on one of them. Actually, this is gonna actually have to be done last because you can't, this side you can, just like any typical garden hose, this side right here is free turning, but the other end isn't. So I'm actually gonna have to hook this side up first. So all it takes is just one of the spike strips. Is it really a spike strip? No. One of the spikes that has the sprinkler head attached to it. And then just use a couple of these hose clamps here. Now, one of the things that if I was really going to try and do this super correctly, what I thought about this as I was kind of putting these in place. But one of the things I could do is just notch out on these spikes, because as you can see, they got 4, let me grab one real quick. You can see here they have 4 of these fins that are on them. What I was thinking about doing is just notching out a spot here and notching out a spot there. So that way these hose clamps would just fit right onto that notch and really hold it in place. Because right now you can kind of turn it a little bit. On some of them, they were a little bit looser. That one actually turned out pretty dang good. But a lot of them are kind of sort of loose. It's not really that bad. I mean, if I were to like go back and do this again, which I don't have any plans on doing, but if I were to do something like that, I think probably notching it out would help to like kind of secure these things in place a little bit better. So there, that's just kind of hand tighten it there and just hand tighten them pretty good. So you can kind of eyeball the way that it's gonna operate. So right now, it is completely backwards from what I want. So I will flip the little thing over here and get it on the right side. Okay, so you can kind of line up how it's going to work just by doing one of these. So you can see that's a little bit too much. I have like right about like that. Maybe a little bit further over here, just a bit. And then for over here, have some overlap. So just do one of those. So now it should travel from that position to that position. And I'm sure these can adjust the rate of flow and all kinds of other stuff like that. I'm gonna look up the instructions on it just to see like all the different options that you might have for getting this thing set up. Because I suspect that, you know, there's a set screw right here. So I know that'll determine like maybe how fast it'll travel back and forth. I think that's what that probably winds up doing. And then there's a couple of other, I think that might be it. I think it's just this screw and then these two set positions to adjust the travel. But I'll look it up just to be sure. So at this point, and then this is the end cap. I want to make sure that's on good and tight because otherwise that'll leak. So as you can see right here, I have an electronic timer too. I have to go get batteries for it. I have them here at the house. I just completely spaced on bringing them out here, but the batteries go in the back there. So this will enable me to be able to go ahead and pre-program all this stuff. So that way I don't have to do a freaking thing. It'll just, the timer will be set. And then when the timer goes off, it'll go ahead and turn on all of the sprinklers, and the sprinklers will irrigate all the vegetables that are out here. And then it'll just automatically turn off too. So yeah, with this setup, I'll be able to go ahead and just set it and forget it. It'll go ahead and turn on whenever I have when I have it programmed. I'm probably gonna do it like in the morning, like before, maybe just a little bit after sunrise or so. So that way the ground will be nice and wet, and it'll have a chance to kind of dry out during the day, because you don't really want to have, like, especially when the vegetables are growing, you don't really want to have a bunch of water sitting on your plants, because the sun will just kind of get magnified on those drops and could burn your plants and do all sorts of nasty stuff. So want to make sure that, and then on top of that, you want to have your ground not be saturated all the time, because then you can have like root rot and all kinds of other nasty stuff too. So kind of got to get all balanced, and that's kind of going to have to be the game that I play here for a little bit as I kind of dial everything in. And I'm thinking that I actually need to get a couple of other hoses and a couple of more sprinkler heads. I'm thinking like maybe 3, maybe 4 more sprinkler heads, probably 4 more sprinkler heads, and more of the hoses and more of the posts. And I might have to get more hose clamps too, because I don't think I have enough to mount more, because I don't have enough. It's not going far enough down. And I thought that this would be plenty, but unfortunately, I don't think it is. I think that I have to go ahead and get a few more heads over there just to make sure that I can get this whole thing. All right, so it'll be the moment of truth next, because I'm going to try out the system and get a couple of batteries, so that way I can go ahead and just manually have it discharge, and maybe I have to make a little bit of adjustments here and there, but when it's all said and done, should be able to show you a working irrigation system. All right, so as you can see, got a working irrigation system going on now. So as you can also see, I only have 2 of them going. And maybe there are some of you irrigation experts out there that are probably laughing at me as I had all 4 of those things set up, and then talking about how like, hey, maybe I need to get a couple more. You're probably thinking to yourself, I don't think that your pressure is going to be enough to run what you got now, let alone getting even more. And to that, I would say you are correct. Yeah, what winds up happening is that there's just not enough pressure, and then the other ones were just, these are the only 2 that I could get going. If I have all 4 of them going, or 5 of them at once, what winds, or 1, 2, yeah, 5 of them. If I have 5 of them going, the water just kind of blurbles out of it, and it doesn't have enough pressure to actually actuate the sprinkler heads to do their cyclical rotation here. But that being said, I've got pretty good coverage right now. As you can see, the ground is doing pretty well. There's a little bit of a dry spot there in the middle, and then of course with the corners here, also not getting enough water in those corners. But the overwhelming majority of the area is getting a good amount of water. And I think, if you water for about like 45 minutes or so, I think there'll be enough water in the ground that even those spots that are missing a little bit, it'll kind of leach through and probably go ahead and get enough water to those areas also. Okay, so there's been a little bit of a change of plan. The original idea that I had for getting the irrigation all completed, I went ahead and finished that part. As a matter of fact, let me just go ahead and walk you over to there, so that way you can kind of see exactly how things look. Because it turned out a little bit different than what I kind of anticipated. One of the things that you'll notice is that everything back here is now kind of finished. So I have our vegetable garden all up. I went ahead and spent a large amount of time getting these fences up. And the whole point of the fences is, to keep critters out. We got a lot of rabbits and other animals around here that would love to go ahead and chow down on our vegetables. But those vegetables are for us, not for those critters. We got plenty of grass and all that stuff that they can snack on. They just need to stay out of our vegetables. So that's why you'll see all the fencing here. So that's all done. And what I wound up doing is that I kind of made the discovery that we don't really have a whole heck of a lot of pressure out here. So I think if I were to do this over again, I'd probably run, because right now it's all 3/4 inch PVC that's ran out here. I would probably run maybe 1.5 inch PVC, just so that way we get a lot more pressure delivered back here, because I think there's probably some losses that are happening just because of that. Not only the loss in pressure, but also in volume, because with 3/4 inch, you can only carry so much water through that tiny pipe. And the problem with having such a small amount of, I guess, bandwidth, for lack of a better word, capacity. That's the bandwidth, we leave that with the internet stuff. Capacity we'll use with irrigation related topics. But with the reduced capacity of a 3/4 inch line, and having, a couple of these sprinkler heads out here, well, not a couple, there's 4 of them. I think initially, I don't remember, because this is actually, I'm kind of recording this weeks later, because this getting the vegetable garden done was a huge priority for me. So I really focused almost exclusively on this and did not do hardly anything else around here. But as I mentioned, it's all done now. I don't know if you can tell, but I went ahead and used the tractor and added furrows. You might be able to see that there's string and all that stuff. So I have all the area where we've planted so far with it's got string running through it, except for this last row here. This one last row, that's probably a little bit difficult to tell where it's actually at, because we planted it and then put the dirt on top of the seedlings. But this whole row right here that goes all the way to the back is all carrots. So I didn't bother with that one, just because that's pretty easy to remember, that the first row that we got is all carrots. But everything else, we got some yellow squash over there. The big corner up in that corner, the far corner there, that's all corn. The small rectangle next to that is beans. So right now we just got corn, carrots, beans, and squash. I plan on putting some potatoes over here on this row over here, and then we have some room to expand. I haven't really decided what we're going to plant there. But as you can see, the irrigation system has been running really well. The changes that I made, actually one of them was today, because as my wife and I were out here, we're kind of looking at the pattern, and this one head, sprinkler head, was just kind of, you could see where it was spraying initially. It was just kind of like doing one of these things where it's only spraying right there, which doesn't really do any good, because, you know, I wanted to have a good coverage across everywhere that we're planting, and it just wasn't cutting it. So I just kind of did an experiment where I undid this one. You can see here where I had taken it off, took this off, took the cap that I had on down here and put it over here instead. And just having the one head actually worked better for this half. So what's happening here is that I actually have two different, because of the reduced amount of capacity, and the pressure out here is not as good as it would be, you know, if we were like right there by the house. But what I wound up doing is I replaced the one timer that we got here with this one instead, because this one has two zones. So that way, these two heads seem to be doing really well. I'm not really sure why. That one on the far end back there is just not really able to get enough pressure. Maybe it's because it's going through so much hose all the way down there. That's the only thing I can think of, is that maybe the hose is causing such a loss of pressure from here all the way down there that it just can't deal with it and doesn't have enough pressure to actually operate properly, because it pretty much just sprays in a straight line and doesn't go through a cycle or anything like that. But having just the one on does work. But I've got two zones, so that way we can go ahead and irrigate. Like the first zone is this one here, so this one turns on the first thing in the morning, irrigates this area for about 15 minutes. I think that's what I have it set for. It's either 15 or 20 minutes. And then it switches to this zone over here, and which is now just the one sprinkler head. So I've already kind of buried the line over here, just so that way I can go ahead and get my tractor around, because as I was putting up the fence, you know, I needed to go ahead and backfill, because I did kind of the same thing that I did. I don't know if you watched my chicken coop video and chicken run videos, but I did kind of the same thing. So I've got hardware cloth that comes up to right here, and it also has an L, so it comes out to here as well. And so I went ahead and backfilled that. So that way, you know, if any critters decide to try and like get up underneath here, they're not going to be able to, because they're going to hit the hardware cloth. And I have it all the way around. So like the whole perimeter of this entire area, even all the way in the back there, that's all got hardware cloth that's up underneath the dirt there. So that way prevents anything from getting in here. So that's one thing that I kind of changed. And this seems to be working much better now that I've kind of tweaked it. And initially I had a lot more sprinkler heads too, until I fired it up. That just did not work. Like I said, the reduced capacity really plays a big role in how much water I can get out there and making these sprinkler heads operate properly, because they do have to have enough pressure to be able to actually actuate and move and go through their cycle there. So as you can see, I still have to go ahead and bury the whole line that comes all the way out to about right here. And I have kind of kept it open, because one of the things that I wanted to do is kind of give myself more areas on the property to access water. And this is one of them. Like, so I have this right here, and this is what I'm going to be doing today, is I went ahead and dug another trench. Let me tell you, out in the hot Texas sun with a pickaxe, because this one right here, because it goes underneath the trees, I couldn't really use the tractor. I could have used it right here, and I just didn't. I don't know, maybe I was just feeling like I didn't want to take out the tractor and put the furrower implement on the back of it, which I probably should have. I would have got this done so much quicker instead of doing it by hand. But I didn't really have much of a choice when it came to coming underneath the trees here, because, you know, I can't get the tractor under here even if I wanted to. Well, I suppose I could, but it would just be really uncomfortable. I'd have branches that would probably be snapping, and I just didn't want to damage the trees or anything. So I just took the pickaxe and went to town on digging up that trench there. That was not a lot of fun. So that's good. That's one of the things I'll be doing today. And then the other thing I'll be doing is, I don't recall if I showed you the bird bath that I kind of put together here. So I have this bird bath right here, and it's working really well. So I have a little system here where it's got a float. It's got a float valve in here. So what happens is that as the water is used up because either the birds are splashing around and drinking it, or just from evaporation, this thing right here will keep it topped off at all times. And it's got like a small little drip leak, but since the birds and evaporation, I'm not really that concerned about it. And I don't see any evidence that it just remains like saturated around here. I see that's kind of a little bit spongy and a little bit damp. So I might want to go ahead and take care of that little tiny drip. I honestly don't really care too much about it. But one of the things that I do care about is that it's great that I've, put this in place here, but I want to have another point for accessing some water. So that way I can attach a garden hose to here. So I'm going to wind up cutting this pipe right here and putting in a T, and then teeing off that and putting on a hose bib. So that way I can go ahead and attach a hose. And the reason for that is you can probably see that I have some stuff that's growing over here. And I have not really been able to water any of these with any sort of consistency, because otherwise I have a really super long hose I can drag from the house all the way, pretty much almost all the way out here. But I do have these seeds planted all the way up to like back there. So the hose doesn't reach that far. But if I go ahead and actually put a hose bib down here by the bird bath, I'll be able to hook up a hose, and then I can water all this, no problem. I could even set up like, if I wanted to, like a drip irrigation system or something along those lines. I'm probably not gonna go to that length. Maybe that'll be a project for next summer, not really sure. But I just, I've got some of these that are growing, and I highly suspect it's just because of the severe lack of water that none of the other ones have really been able to sprout yet. And it's kind of the same thing on the other side of the property. The whole point of those things is, I know it looks like corn, and I think it's a relative of corn, but it doesn't actually grow any cobs or anything. And it's just specifically there for privacy. These things are supposed to grow really fast, and I know that they're struggling right now just because of lack of water, but I want to have like a nice, like high vegetation line there. So that way kind of gives us a little bit of privacy back here. And on the other side here, well, you can see this is where the line is, or the trench, and this is where the lines are going to be. And I've already got all the pipe kind of laid out here. And what I'll be doing is kind of coming around here and coming around at a 90, coming up, because what I'm doing here is I'm actually going to put in an automatic, I want to call it automatic watering, but it's kind of sort of automatic watering, but kind of sort of not in a way. And the reason why I say that is because it's actually the system where I already have them in here, where the chickens can go ahead and this is what will be inside the cage, and they tap at this, and it dispenses a little tiny bit of water down here, and they can just peck at that, and that'll go ahead and give them the water that they need. So that way we don't have to come out here and fill up their water dispenser, which is that thing over there in the corner. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that is the water dispenser. And the problem with that is they like to like take dirt baths. So a lot of times, I'm not really sure why, but they decide to take a dirt bath right in front of their water. And then when they get up and like shake their feathers off to get all the dirt off of them, they wind up shaking all that dirt in there. And it turns into like a muddy mess. And, I want to have our chickens drinking nice, clean, or as clean as water as I can get it. And we have to clean that thing out probably every 2 or 3 days just because it gets full of mud. I try to every day I'll take the top of the thing off and fill it with water. And then the bottom part, I'll go ahead and tip it over to spill out all the water, and then smack it up against the side of the cage to kind of shake out some of that mud. But that just kind of gets old. And I just like the whole idea. And not only that, but there's been a couple of occasions where what they've done is if it gets a little bit low, it doesn't have enough weight to keep it down. And so they'll they'll perch on the edge of that right there. And if it's too light, they'll actually flip it over. And then all their water's gone. And then, we're in the house, so we don't know that they just did that. So they could go without water for, all the way until the next day sometimes. So it's happened like 2 times, I think, so far. And just, want to make sure that, you know, they have water at all times and it's going to be clean. So I'll be taking the line here, coming up to this corner and bringing up a riser, and then kind of doing a 90 into the cage itself through here. And then on the inside of it, I'll go ahead and glue on another PVC pipe and cap it off on the end. And the PVC pipe, well, it's actually not going to be a full PVC pipe. What I'll be doing is just cutting off, you know, pieces of 3/4 inch pipe, and I'll be inserting these on to sections of it, and I'll space it just, you know, I'll have a decent amount of spacing on it. So that's one of the things that I'll be doing. And then I'll also be installing a hose bib over here on this corner too. So that way we'll be able to go ahead and keep the chickens watered, and then I'll have a hose bib, because I kind of did the same thing over here where I had planted a lot of these, I don't even remember what the heck they're called, but I planted all those plants, the same ones I just showed you over here, and nothing has sprouted yet. And again, I highly suspect it's because there's just no water. We have not had rain in weeks now, which is really, really unusual. We're supposed to be getting some next weekend, but I don't know how long it's going to be. I have no idea if we're actually going to get any rain, because that's a pretty long, you know, forecast, whether we're going to actually get the rain or not. But if we do get rain, great, but I have no idea how long it's going to be after that until we get additional rain. So it's important to me to make sure that I'm able to water some of the stuff that I'm trying to grow back here, and without having access to a hose. I have a 100-foot hose that I could hook up to another 50-foot hose, and I would be able to drag it all the way back out here to water all this stuff. But I got to tell you, it's a pain in the butt to have to stretch out a 150-foot hose and then have to drag it all the way back over to the house. Not a fan of that. So that's why, one of the reasons why I'm kind of motivated to get this taken care of. And hopefully I can get this all done today. I say that a lot, and then I wind up realizing that it's just more work than I thought. And that's probably going to happen again, but we'll see what happens. So the tools that I got, and I'll just kind of go over some of the tools here. Let me just collapse this little thing down a bit. I just got back from Home Depot, so that's where I got all this stuff from. So just got some 3/4 inch couplings. I got a right angle grinder, a rigid grinder, so that way I can easily cut the pipes. Wound up getting a big old thing of PVC cement, because I had one of these little cans like this, but kind of ran out. So this is just the PVC pipe there. I got, these are all the little chicken waterer things. They're actually two different things. A company sells these, which will just, because the actual red piece that you see on here, that's a separate thing. And you're supposed to just kind of like screw that into a PVC pipe. But I think that these tees that they have here are made specifically for stuff like this, for, you know, poultry and all that. Then it's got some Nipix lockjaw, or not lockjaw, sliding lockjaw pliers. I don't know what the heck these, self-locking pliers. Yeah, so got those so that way I can tighten up everything. Got a ball valve, so that way I can turn the water off inside. Or for one thing, I probably will never have to turn the water off, but if I have to service any of these things, I'll be able to turn the water off. But the big reason why I got this is so that way I can kind of regulate the pressure, because I get the feeling that just having full force from the hose or from the line that I've got coming off the house there would be too much for these things. And so this will help me to kind of regulate that pressure to make sure that it's not gonna wind up just leaking all over the place. And let's see, what else do I got? I have the actual like hose bibs. So I got all these things here. And what I wound up doing was getting a female to male. Yeah, there we go. So it's hard to do this one-handed, but you know, I got this, and then this is a threaded female pipe thread. Just kind of, I have to use some Teflon tape on this, which I also have out here. So I use some Teflon tape and use those Nipix pliers and just kind of crank down on those. And then it's just solvent fit on this end here. So that way when I go ahead and get it all installed, it'll just go right on, just like that. And then I got a couple of end caps. I didn't need to have more than one. I might have got 4 of them, I don't know. But I usually, whenever I buy one of something like this, I usually get more than just one in case I mess something up. So that's gonna cap off the end of the PVC pipe when it's inside the chicken run. So that's pretty much everything. I suspect that I will probably have to go and get more than just this, because typically speaking, you run into a scenario where you're like, oh geez, I need to go get an additional tool. But what I have right now, I think will work. And I'm just kind of just talking now instead of like doing the work. So I guess I should probably start getting some of that work done. All right. And you get to watch me. How exciting is that? Pretty exciting. I would much rather be watching somebody else do this though, but unfortunately then I'd have to pay them, and I don't really feel like paying anybody anything anymore as much as possible, so I just wind up doing everything myself. Okay, time to get to work. Okay, so I got everything all PVC cemented together, and didn't make too many mistakes along the way. I'm sure you probably saw at least the one mistake that I made, which was right here. I actually completely forgot that I was going to add the hose bib on, and I had plumbed it all the way through the cage, and I was like, oh man, as I was just getting ready to move everything over there to the bird bath area to add the hose bib on, I was like, wait a minute, hose bib. Totally forgot, spacing it. So it's all together. I'm pretty confident about everything down here being okay as far as like any leaks. You're gonna view me doing a pressure test because I figure why not experience this together. There are 2 areas though that I have some doubts as to whether or not things are gonna be leak proof or leak free. And one of them is over here. It's actually the very first thing that I did. And it was when I cut the irrigation pipe down here. The irrigation pipe down here, the one that's going this direction, is smaller in diameter than what it's supposed to be. So when I put the T on, it was like really loose. So I don't know whether or not that is gonna be leak free or not. And if it's not, then I have to go back and figure something out. I'm probably gonna have to replace this whole section right here because it's not the right size. So I don't know what the heck it is that these people are doing, because I've had 2 pipes now. This one, and I have another one that I couldn't use at all because it was leaking, and had to go ahead and replace it with a different one. So I have my doubts as to whether or not this one is gonna not leak. I feel strongly that the one that's teeing off this direction will be just fine. I think it's gonna be this one right here that's gonna give me some grief. And then the other thing, and this is a mistake and also probably gonna be an area that's gonna leak, and that is on the bird bath. I don't know, well, it was the time-lapse footage, so I don't know if you saw it or not, but I kind of cranked down way too hard and I actually split it right here. So I don't know whether or not that's gonna hold. I'm hoping, because there is a little washer, a little rubber washer that's inside here, and I'm hoping that it's compressed up against there tight enough to where it won't be an issue. But I don't know. We're gonna find out here in just a few seconds. So I'm gonna walk back over to the house because I disconnected the hose, so that way any water that was in it would be able to easily drain out. Otherwise, I would just wind up with this trickling mess, and trying to weld those pipes together with all the water coming out would definitely be a problem. So I'm gonna go back over here to this mess of a manifold with a goofy system that I have. And this is another one where if I could go back and do things differently, I would do this differently. I would probably have just a hard pipe instead of this silly hose, because this is just kind of a mess. Not really professional. I'm not a professional though, so I guess I should be excused from that, right? Let me just look inside before I get this all tight, just to make sure that the rubber washer didn't fall out or something silly. Nope, it's in there. Just gotta make sure. I would be really annoyed if I got this all back on and tightened, only to find out that the rubber washer had fallen out. All right, go ahead and charge the line. There it goes. And let's just go ahead and see if we got any leaks. All this pipe over here I know is leak proof or leak free. And by the way, I don't know, I mentioned earlier about how we have not really gotten a lot of rain. Well, you can see how bad things are just by looking at that. You see that gap right here? That is because the soil is so dry, it's actually pulling away from concrete that was poured. This was like poured years ago for the pool, and it's pulling away. The soil line's pulling away. It's pulling away, and that's some of the new concrete that was poured to extend the patio. And it is just bone dry. I mean, everything's receding. There's like cracks all over the property where it's just splitting open just from lack of moisture and just getting so dry. Okay, let's come over here and first things first, just double check that I don't see any leaks coming over here. That looks good. No leaks on the, no, I didn't open this up yet. Let's go ahead and crack this open. I'll be shocked if this actually doesn't leak. Yep. Ooh, man, that sounds just awful. Yeah, so the whole point of me like putting Teflon tape and everything like that was to fix the leak, and I just made another leak. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and probably just get like some cyanoacrylate, probably some baking soda. If you haven't seen that hack, you can mix cyanoacrylate and baking soda, and it creates like this really super strong epoxy to fill in gaps in items. So, and yep, that is, yep, you can see it shooting out a stream. I had a very sneaking suspicion that that is exactly what was going to happen. So that means that I'm going to pause the video for a bit while I go ahead and address this issue. I'm surprised it doesn't leak on both ends. It's only leaking on the one end. So I guess there's that. Well, whatever the heck whatever that means. It would have been nice to not have any leaks. I guess I should just go ahead and check the other areas too. These I don't think we're gonna have any leaks along these ones, because these are the ones that have the flanged end where they make a really good connection. Now these guys over here are not flanged end, but I see that things look dry there. That connection was good. How about over here? Yep, that looks good too, no leaks. That's good, because I really don't want him to crawl underneath there again to try and weld all that stuff. And that looks good. 90 degree looks good. And then this mess over here, that looks good too. But then again, I don't know if I got pressure all the way over here. It might just be air. Let's go ahead and crank. Whoo, yep, air. There we go. Now we got some water. All right, so that looks good. How about the waterers? Let's see how these things do. Charge that up. How does this work? Whoa. Sorry, girls. Freaking the chickens out here. Ooh, that water's hot too. Hey, now, it's not supposed to stay on. Why is that staying on? Or just because it's so hot. That's not supposed to stay on like that. What the hell is going on? What do we got going on here? Why is that staying on? That is not supposed to be staying on. It's supposed to just tap and then turn back off. That ain't what it's doing. This one's messed up. Oh, for freaking crying out loud. Not the rest of these. Well, I mean, kinda. It's gonna scare the hell out of the chickens, though. Definitely gonna have to like release some of that pressure. Or back off on it a bit. Kind of adjust it some. Because they will not be happy having that amount of force coming through this. Just trying to do a quick adjustment here, see if I can't get this system to work right. But I get the feeling that it's going to build up too much pressure here. I think I'm gonna have to get a pressure regulator for this. I don't think this is gonna work right. Yeah, this is not gonna, the chickens are just gonna freak out on that one. So I have to go back to the drawing board on that one too, because that is just not gonna work for those chickens. All right, so a couple of kinks to work out. Gonna have to get a pressure regulator for that. And gonna have to go fix that stupid leak over there. That's just spouting all over the place. So 2 steps forward, 1 step back, I guess. Would have been nice to get it all 100% working right off the bat, but sometimes this is the kind of thing that you just got to deal with it and just got to try and have patience and get things working. All right, so I'm gonna cut it out here because I'm just gonna turn the water off and then go back over there and try and get those that one leak taken care of, because that is no good. All right, see you in a little bit. All right, so at least one of those problems is taken care of now. I was able to go ahead and fix that big leak at that T-junction that I just talked about. And so you can see the water is charged now, but there's no leak. It is doing real well at this point. So as you might be able to see, but right there, you see how it's kind of brown? Well, what I wound up doing was a complete and utter just hack. What I did was I have a bolt. I don't know what size bolt it was, but the head on the bolt just almost fits inside a 3/4 inch outer diameter irrigation line like this right here. So what I did was I have a blowtorch, one of those portable propane blowtorches, and just blowtorched the inside of the PVC pipe to heat the pipe up. And I jammed the bolt in there, or the bolt head in there, and turned the bolt head around, and that caused the PVC pipe to just expand out just enough to where I was able to go ahead and get a real tight fit with the, I had to put a coupling on there and then also put a new T-junction on there, and it worked. I was really not sure if I was gonna find something that would fit inside there that would allow me to just kind of flange it open a little to just make it fit the way that it's supposed to. So for what I can do today, I'm done. I'm gonna have to go ahead and fix the bird bath now. Again, I fixed it better. Now it leaks more. So I think I showed you. Yeah, I showed you, like, it's not too bad, but the whole point, I mean, you can see like right there where it's kind of juicing out there. The whole point of this was because it had a very slow just slow drip, way slower than that. So I just wound up making it worse. You gotta love how you fix things and fix them worse. So, but yeah, I got good pressure, that's for sure. Real good pressure. It's the same with the spigot that's over there by the chicken run. So that works out real well. So I got two things that I gotta address. One being, gotta fix that. And then the other thing being, I'm gonna have to get a pressure regulator to regulate the pressure that's going to those little chicken waterers, because what I do not want them to do is to go over there and peck at it and then get a blast of water in their faces, because that's going to train them to not do that, which is not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get them, I want to train them to where they're going to go over there and use that waterer, because I'm tired of having to clean out their freaking the water thing. Now, granted, when I go ahead and, since I have the hose bib over here now, I can attach a garden hose, and it's way easier, because otherwise before, we'd have to pick, well, when I say me, I'd have to go pick up the empty water container, and usually we'd bring out like a 1 liter thing of water, or is it 1 gallon? It's 1 gallon. Bring out a gallon of water and just tilt that thing upside down and then dump it in there. And then the bottom blue base part, that's where all that mud and junk like that accumulates. So I'd have to take that, smack it up against the side of the cage. But when it gets so gross that it's not good enough, I don't take it and walk all the way over to the house, way the heck over there, to get to a hose to be able to clean it out. So now I just have a hose right there. So I'll be able to clean it out every day if I really wanted to. I don't want to do that. That's why I put this in here, so that way I don't have to do that. I don't know whether or not these little things are going to work the way that I think that they're going to work. I have to just wait and see. I think with a regulator in there, that's going to be the ultimate test. And if this doesn't work, then they have these little like cups that hold water in them, and they can tap on it and it'll go ahead. I don't know if they tap on it or if it'll just has like a little float valve thing in there that'll just kind of keep the little cup thing full. But I'd just replace those, swap them out with those cup things instead, if these don't work the way that I think that they're supposed to work. And people seem to have good luck with them. Unfortunately for me, I just have to get a pressure regulator for it, because it's too much right now. So I have the ball valve shut right now, so that way they're not going to get blasted, because they were already tapping at it, with the water that was off. And like I said, the last thing I want to do is make them paranoid of those things, because that's going to do me no good. All right, so now what I'm going to be doing is, since I don't have any leaks on the line now, I'm just going to go ahead and take the tractor on my Kubota BX2380 and just go around and dump the dirt on top of there and kind of pack it down a little bit. And I'm going to just go around the whole thing here and just like get all that stuff taken care of, so that way we can kind of call it good, until I get the bird feeder fixed, or bird bath fixed, and get a pressure regulator for the little chicken waterer thing. That's the technical term, chicken waterer thing. Okay, so let me go ahead and button all this stuff up, and then I will see you guys in a little bit. Okay, so that's a wrap for this project. I still have a little bit of tidying up to do, but the majority of it's all done. Like I was able to take the tractor. As you can see, get all those trenches that I dug all covered up. So everything's ready to go. Just waiting on getting a pressure regulator that I gotta go order right now. And then there's some parts of the line that's underneath the trees here, but I am so hot and I've been out in the sun all day long. I gotta get out of the sun. This is really getting kind of ridiculous with how hot it is out here. I know it's probably about, it's got to be upper 90s, if not like 100 degrees or so out here. So it is time to get out of the sun. I'll be surprised if I didn't get a sunburn today. I got a pretty good tan going on, so at least I'm able to kind of minimize that. But there's just little pieces like this area right here where I didn't have enough maneuverability with the tractor to be able to do something like, get the dirt to go around here. And there'll just be small little areas here and there that were just kind of being a pain. But as you can see, like the whole line is now buried, and where I teed it off earlier, that is also buried as far up as I could comfortably get it with the tractor and the bucket. So this is the other side here that you could see. So you can see the line underneath the trees there. I got a good portion of over here, and this is pretty much all covered in. There's probably gonna be a dent here though, because I know that this ground is gonna settle where that trench is. So at some point in the future, I'm gonna have to go ahead and go over this again, just to kind of make sure that, we don't have any kind of dips and stuff like that. Because I got a guy that mows our lawn, and he's got one of those stand-up riding lawnmowers. And I'm sure that he probably, for one, he's gonna be very happy to see that these trenches are finally filled in, because you can see all the way up to the house where I could get it like around the bend of the patio over there. That's all covered up also. But past that point, it's just trying to use a tractor with a big bucket. It's kind of like, trying to use a mouse with MS Paint and drawing the Mona Lisa. Well, okay, maybe that's a little over the top one, but you know what I mean. It's just not the right tool for finesse. Not, at least not in my hands. Like I'm not that good with a tractor yet to be able to like take it and go around those curves and just gently nudge the dirt back into place. It's just gonna be easier for me to just grab a shovel, and it wouldn't take that long to do it. But it ain't gonna happen today, because like I said, it's just blazing hot out, and me, and dressing all in black all the time. That's just my thing. I don't know why, but for one, it makes it really easy for me to pick out clothes, because everything always matches. So maybe there's a little bit of practicality in there, and because I'm one to definitely take, I wouldn't call it a shortcut, but just to optimize. I like to optimize my life. And that's one of the reasons why I did things like buy that tractor, because I can't even imagine trying to dig all this by hand and then have to backfill it in by hand. I dug enough of it right here just under the tree by hand to let me know that when I bought that tractor, it was a very, very smart purchase. And every time I can knock out really big projects like this and do it in a reasonable amount of time without killing myself, it's huge to be able to do that kind of stuff. So I don't know if I've endorsed, I think on my Kubota, if you haven't seen, I have a Kubota BX 2080 review that I did just to kind of talk about it. It's a pretty long video too, so it's gonna be something that if you plan on watching it all in one shot, maybe if you're cleaning the house or something like that, just press play and go about your business, because it's a long video, because there was a lot for me to go over. I decided I just could not let the video end like that, where I had several things that were left outstanding. One of them being the bird bath. I wound up using some cyanoacrylate and some, not baking soda. I thought I was gonna go that route, but what I did was I got cyanoacrylate plus an activator, that spray stuff, and I wound up using it on there, and that stuff works like a miracle. It was really, really awesome. All I did was just put a little line of the cyanoacrylate on there and then clamped it down and then just hit it with that spray activator stuff. Boom, it welded it. It's super solid. There's still a small little drip, but that has nothing to do with the connections that I made. It's the valve that's inside of it. I think that the float just doesn't sink down far enough in there, because it's a really shallow, it's a bird bath, right? It's not super deep. So it's shallow, and I don't think that the float has enough force to really shut the valve all the way. But the drip is so slow that it's not having any impact in it whatsoever. The whole ring around the bird bath is completely dry, which lets me know that it's not building up a lot of water and spilling over. And on top of that, the base of the bird bath itself is 100% dry. There's like none of that moisture that was kind of sitting around down below it when I had the slow leak before. That's completely gone. It's just, like I said, that valve that is just super duper slow. I don't care. It's just got to kind of keep up with evaporation and with the use that the birds get out of it too. The other thing that I did was I did install a pressure regulator, and you can't see it from where I have the camera at right now, so I'll probably wind up just getting a close-up of it. But the pressure regulator, that is also installed underneath this lean-to that I decided to build. And I built the lean-to because, well, you can see the sun is just beaming down super bright, super hot, and it's hitting the PVC pipe that's supplying the water to the bird waterers. And I didn't like it because of the fact that with all that sunlight hitting it, it heats up the water. And I'm fairly certain that, like you and I, we're not, unless we're having tea or coffee or something like that, but usually when we want to have a nice cool drink of water, we want to have nice cool water to drink. And with it getting direct sunlight, it was heating it up, and the water was winding up, even the water that was just on the coming out of the chicken water is really, really hot. So I built this lean-to, and it also served another purpose, and that other purpose was I bought some hose reels, because just having the hose reels laying on the ground, I don't know, it just didn't look tidy, and I kind of wanted to make it nice and tidy. So I wound up buying a couple of hose reels. One is here, and I have another one on that bird bath also. Initially, I did have the hose reel mounted directly to one of these poles here before I had built this lean-to. But the problem was that there's so much force when you're pulling on it to, you reel out the hose, and then also when you're reeling the hose in, there's just so much force that it just wound up making the holes that are inside the pipe large, and then it just literally fell off. So I'm like, okay, that's just not gonna work. So I kind of don't tell the chickens this, but I kind of killed two birds, probably multiple birds with one stone, by building this little lean-to here, because now the PVC pipe is out of the sunlight. I had a place to mount the hose reel, so it really worked out just nice, really, really well. And I thought I did a pretty good job on this. It's 2x4 construction, 3/4 inch ply on either side here, and then the sides have tar paper that comes up and overlaps underneath the roof flashing there, so that way water can't, hit it from the side or something like that. It'll just sheet right off of there. And then, I did tar paper underneath here, and then the same stuff that I put on the chicken run roof, I use here as well. Although the roof itself is only 1/8 inch ply, because I didn't really need to, I'm not gonna be putting anything on top of here. I mean, if I needed to, I guess I could step on this to get on top of the chicken roof. Why would I do that? I don't know. But if I wanted to, I feel confident that it's sturdy enough that I could do that if need be for some crazy reason. So the other thing that I did was that I went ahead and swapped out those little waterer nipples, because it was making a big mess. They would peck at it, and then the water just kind of spills out and got all over the ground and turned the ground into a muddy mess. And I didn't really want to have the chickens stomping around in a bunch of mud. Not only that, but instead of taking dirt baths, they started deciding to take mud baths. Maybe that's because, the water hitting the dirt and turning it into kind of mud kind of made it cooler, and it cooled them off a little bit. So I just didn't like that whole idea. So what I wound up doing was I swapped out those little chicken waterer things for the cups. Like I had mentioned, I said, hey, if these little nipple things don't really work out real well, I'm gonna swap them out and probably get these cups. Put the cups in there, and it works out perfectly. Those cups I would recommend if you're looking at a watering system for your chickens, get the cups. Don't get the little peck nipple thingy-majiggers. Not only that, but they can they dip their beaks in there, they get their wattles in it, which cools them off, and they can get a really big gulp. And you can see them they'll go in there and get a gulp and then tilt their heads back to kind of swallow some of that water. You can't do that with those little chicken waterer nipple thingies. It only kind of just trickles out a little bit. And so this enables them to really get a nice drink of water. The other thing that this lean-to does, not only does it shade the PVC pipes, but it also shades the chickens. And when I get that close up, I'm sure you'll see that the chickens are actually hanging out right in the shade that this thing's providing. Whereas before, when the sun's in this position right here, it would be, well, you can't see right now, but the sunlight hits inside the chicken run here, and they avoid it like the plague, because they just get too hot in that full sunlight. So having them trying to get water, they would avoid doing it, I think, probably until they're like super duper thirsty, because they just didn't like getting into the sun. So with this lean-to being here, it provides that additional shade, and they're constantly going over here and getting drinks of water. Whereas before, I would see them hanging out way in the back, away from the sunlight. And every now and then I could see them coming over here and getting a drink. But now they're like hanging out right by it and just stand up, you know, and get drinks all the time. So I know that they're getting well hydrated. I know they're a heck of a lot happier now. They have an additional shade spot. Their water's cooler. They got this really cool looking thing right here. I don't know if they care about that, but I know they care about the shade. I know they probably care about that cool water. So that really worked out very, very well. And then lastly, I did reconfigure things in the back there with the irrigation for the vegetable garden. I wound up just taking one of the sprinkler heads and moving it over like 1 or 2 spots, because there was a big, the corner over there in the, I guess it would be the northeast corner of the vegetable garden, wasn't really getting a lot of water because the sprinkler just couldn't get all that distance. So moving it over a little bit, because there's already overlap anyways with the sprinkler that I have over here to the west. That west sprinkler head was really getting pretty good, and it was just overlapping with this one being over here, so I just moved it out a little ways. So now I've got really, really good coverage across the whole vegetable garden, and I think that worked out really well as also. I think that this isn't related to the irrigation project, but it's related to the vegetable garden. I think what I'm gonna wind up having to do though is do an initial project that I really wish I could just stop with all these big projects, but I'm gonna have to go ahead and get some like posts and put some posts up and come up with some sort of a system that'll be able to drape shade cloth across the whole vegetable garden, which is a 20-foot by 60-foot space. So it's a pretty big space. That's gonna be a lot of fun to try and do something like that. But I think it's necessary because it looks like our squash and our beans are kind of struggling, getting just absolutely doused with all this UV and sunlight. It's just baking them. They did come up and they're starting to like look okay, but you can tell they're kind of wilting in the light. It's just too much. So I need to get a shade cloth. Otherwise, they're just not gonna stand any chance. And I don't know if they're gonna survive. We might not wind up getting anything out of this vegetable garden this year, just because I'm kind of learning as I go. And this is one of those things where just not calculating how much sunlight was gonna be in there and factoring that into the whole design, it didn't really dawn on me that, hey, you know what? These plants are probably gonna get too much light and it's just gonna wind up killing them. We'll have to see how things go. I got my fingers crossed that they'll make it, but we'll have to see. I think that's pretty much it though. And that does wrap up this project with the whole irrigation thing. And I wanna say, hey, thanks a lot for watching. And if you made it all the way to the end here, then hey, you know what? You deserve a trophy or a medal or like a gold star you could put on your fridge or something like that. So go out and get yourself one, because I'm not buying it. You're watching this video for free. You know, I don't charge anything, obviously. So like, I don't have any money. Well, I'm not gonna go through the trouble of buying you guys gold stars for watching my videos, but I would appreciate it if you thumbs it up. And also, if you haven't subscribed, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe. Getting some likes and subscribes, and even just the views themselves, it all kind of goes together to let me know that you guys really like this content. And it just gives me more motivation to make more content, because I gotta tell you, standing out here in this hot sun, beating down on me, making these videos, making these projects go out, you know, extend even longer, because having to, you know, put the camera over here, refocus and do this and do that, like it really makes these things kind of drawn out. So any kind of like feedback that I can get from you guys just kind of gives me that boost to want to make more. And I will still be making videos, but I suspect that if I have an increase in viewership and likes and views and all that and subscribers, that's going to cause me to do projects more and more that I usually would probably not do, just because I want to get them done really quickly. But if I got a lot of people watching, then that's kind of like, hey, you know what? I want to provide more content so that people can enjoy what I'm doing, and if they're enjoying what I'm doing. So yeah. Okay, that's enough from me. Really appreciate you guys watching. And if you made it this far, do me a favor and post down below saying like, oh wow, I made it this far, because then it'll let me know that you actually did make it to the end. And I hope that you guys have a great day, and I will see you next time. Bye.